everyone, and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So, today we will be discussing two articles. Both are from the Hindu. The first article is Target Judicial Patriarchy, Not the Judges. So, basically, this article is a very well written article which talks about the dominance of male judges in the Supreme Court specifically, and even if we talk about the Indian judicial system as well. So, how much do we need to have a right balance in the composition of the judges has been discussed in here. And the second article, Ploughing a New Furrow in the Agri-Regulatory System, talks about the various reforms that are needed in the benefit or for the benefit of the farmers in our country. And finally, we have the news and flash column for our prelims exam. So if you're preparing for CLAT 2021 or 22, you can enroll yourself for Project Maverick, which is LawSikho's CLAT prep course. The fees is very much nominal, just for rupees 100. You can find this course in the description box below. This is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Indra Sahni ruling is related to, your options are marital rape, reservation, creamy layer of OBCs, or none of the above. You can write down your answer in the comment section below. This is the descriptive question for the day. What do you understand by judicial patriarchy? Suggest some ways to do away with it. With this, let's start our discussion for the first article, which talks about the judicial patriarchy. So before we begin with this, let's understand as to what do we mean by the term patriarchy. Basically, patriarchy means any system of the society or any kind of arrangement wherein the male has the domination. For example, even the Indian society is a patriarchal society. But if we look at the closer sense, the northeastern states in India have the matriarchal system, wherein we call it as a female dominated society. But altogether, in a general situation, the Indian society also is a patriarchal one, wherein the men or the males dominate the particular system of the society. So similar pattern has been taken up for the judicial setup as well, wherein it has been observed that even the judicial system in our country has become patriarchal, which means that it has been moved by the diktats of the men. So, a recent observation by the Chief Justice of India while granting a bail to a government servant accused of raping a minor is being widely criticized, because recently also we saw that the Chief Justice of India and the entire bench had asked the accused of rape to marry the girl who was a victim, and various similar judgments and accusations have come up against the Supreme Court, wherein it has been seen favoring the men who are accused of rape and even raping a minor, and thus it is being widely criticized. So here the basic problem that we can see is of gender insensitivity. Now what do you mean, what do we mean by gender insensitivity? See, many a times when there are some certain kinds of problems which are associated with certain kinds of people, now this could be gender specific, this could be age specific, or this could also be caste or religion specific. Now this can be, it can belong to any particular criteria. So what do we believe is that any person who belongs to that particular category is more sensitive towards these problems, and thus can come up with more sensitive solutions. And that is how we see, like for example, if we talk about the gender insensitivity or gender sensitivity, so we say that if there is any problem which is associated specifically with women, so possibly the women can be more sensitive towards it, and thus can allow a better judgment or better dimensions of that particular problem to be seen. And considering the problem with the Indian judicial system, gender insensitivity has taken up its roots. Now, why do we say so? That in the Supreme Court, out of the 30 total judges, we have only 2 women judges. So we have Honorable Miss Justice Indra Banerjee and we have Honorable Miss Justice Indu Malhotra. Apart from them, all the 28 judges are male judges. Now, obviously, we might say that, see, they are at the post of the Supreme Court judges, and thus there might be no any kind of biasness that might be prevailing, and even the male judges would be willing to give judgments that are very much in favor of the women. Definitely they would be willing to do so, but the particular mindset which is engraved in everybody's mind plays a very important role here, because obviously the female judges, now I'll also give you an example contrary to this, but in the general situation it is seen that the female judges are more sensitive towards problems like outraging modesty of a woman, rape, etc., acid attack and all, and thus judgments coming out from their benches are more sensitive and more equivalent when it comes to imparting justice to that particular victim. But as seen in the recent case also, the CGI also had, while granting bail to the government servant, he had passed such comments which were not really appreciated by the victim. And thus there is a refusal to recognize marital rape. So every now and then we say that even under the IPC, marital rape has not been recognized. And as it says that once you are married, there is nothing that exists as sort of consent or maybe the rape, which definitely is something, if we try to understand in the liberal sense, is something very much bizarre if we really talk about the freedom of speech and expression, and also the freedom to give one's own consent or dissent. Then it is contrary to the observations made in Justice J.S. Verma Committee. Now, as we know that Justice J.S. Verma Committee was set up specifically to put up the guidelines for sexual harassment at workplace, and to understand that what do we mean by sexual harassment, rape, etc. So all these things go totally against and in contradiction with the Justice J.S. Verma Committee, wherein it said that rape should be viewed as a violation of her bodily integrity and sexual autonomy. And also, it said that the autonomy cannot be permanently lost by entering into marriage. Now, this is one beautiful thing that was given by the J.S. Verma Committee, that it does not mean that once you have entered the marriage, so there is nothing called the consent, and thus the woman will still have the autonomy or over her own body, and also her sexual autonomy will prevail, and there is no permanent loss of that particular autonomy just because she has entered into a marriage. And thus rape remains rape irrespective of the relationship. So this was the beauty of the JS Verma Committee, which has been completely ignored by the recent judgments and the recent contentions taken by the Supreme Court judges, that JS Verma Committee said that no matter when or at what stage does it take place, a rape would still remain to be a rape. And also, as per the NCRB, which is the National Crime Record Bureau report of 2019, every hour, 39 instances of crime against women, including 4 instances of rape, are committed in India. So, can you understand the gravity that even when you and I are doing this discussion of for this particular article, there is a possibility that some woman in our country is being harassed, or maybe some woman unfortunately is being raped as well. So we really need to become more sensitive and understanding of this particular thing. And then in 2009 to 2019, the rape cases increased by 88%. So, and in 2019, 4 lakh crimes against women have increased. And even if we talk about domestic violence, which is one of the most heinous crimes against women, so even in times of lockdown due to COVID-19, the cases of domestic violence have also increased fold some. So here let's understand and let's see some instances of judicial patriarchy. So in the case of Devi, the Rajasthan High Court gave some absurd reasons while acquitting the accused. So what were the reasons that the Rajasthan High Court gave? That the higher caste man cannot rape a lower caste woman for reasons of purity. Now, obviously, this does not stand any merit by the recent case or the recent rape case that had taken place in UP, the Hathras case, wherein the various higher caste men had raped a woman from the lower caste, and thus this complete contention of the Rajasthan High Court, while giving the acquittal to the accused, said that the higher caste man, because of the reasons of purity, would never rape a lower caste woman, and then her husband could not have watched his wife being raped. Men 60 to 70 years old cannot commit rape. Then one relative cannot commit rape in front of another relative. Now, can you see how shallow this judgment has been? And thus, this completely shows that how patriarchal our judicial system has become in terms of specifically considering the offenses like rape. Then the appeal against this judgment is yet to be disposed of after 25 years. So another facet of the Indian judiciary has come up of the lethargy of disposing of the cases, because the appeal against this particular absurd judgment is still pending until 25 years have still passed away. Then in the Hadia case of 2007, the Kerala High Court's observation on Hadia's independency and power of her father over her had come up, that Hadia had been made way too independent, and that her power of her father over her, was there. So these judgments are really something that really hurt the sentiment, the very purpose of even having the criminal justice system in the country. And that's the recent case wherein I was saying that even we cannot really guarantee that if at all the woman is a judge, so the judge is a woman, so only then the sensitive issues might come up, and they will be taken more sensitively. Like recently, the case of the Bombay High Court, wherein it was related to POXO, and it was the female judge who had actually said that there was no body to body contact, and thus the contact had taken place over the clothes, and so it would not amount to sexual harassment or sexual assault. So that was really bizarre to see in this kind of case. Then there are some other absurd observations also, like of the 2020 Guwahati High Court, Madras High Court, and then also in the case of by Justice M. Kaju in D. Velusamy versus D. Parchayammal, in which it termed a second wife as a mistress and keep, and thus she's not entitled to maintenance. So can you understand this? It's really grave, and thus we need to drop off this judicial patriarchy and understand the importance of having an equitable composition of the judges in our courts. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about the constraints for Indian farmers. So, a recent publication by the World Bank on enabling the business of agriculture 2019 ranked India 49th out of 101 countries. France, Croatia, and Czech Republic topped. They were the top three countries, and among the emerging groups of 20, that was the EG20 countries, India has the second least favorable regulatory environment for farming after South Africa. So it's not something that we are faring very well into. Rather, we have some regulatory environment which is not at all favorable for our farmers, and thus, if at all we look or we aspire to increase the incomes of the farmers, or we want people to indulge into farming activities, and we want agriculture sector to be prosperous like it was ever again, we need to make these regulatory notions or these regulatory guidelines more favorable towards the growth of the farmers. So India's low standing and the steps needed. So the weakest performance on five indicators, on 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and so there are various indicators. Out of them, of these five indicators, India performed the weakest. And here are some steps that are suggested and that are needed in this direction. A regulatory framework governing irrigation management. So for the irrigation as well, as we know that in India, specifically in the areas or agriculture areas where the water is scarce, so there the availability of water is very difficult, and that is why many a times irrigation management becomes very weak, and thus we need to have a proper regulatory framework governing the irrigation management. Then, to reduce variability of output prices and incomes. Now, by reducing the variability of output prices and incomes, we mean that many a times when the farmer is sowing a particular kind of crop or seed in his field, he is not even sure as to he will be able to sell it in the market or not. So thus it needs to be seen that the farmers are made, they're assured that this output, the output or the prices or the incomes that they would earn, it is not variable, and at least some income they will get out of the hard work that they are doing, and thus reduced variability or reduced chances of any kind of contingency would more and more incentivize the farmers to grow more and to get themselves involved more into the agricultural activities. And then minimize the vulnerability of natural shocks and insensitive production of riskier and higher return crops. Now, by natural shocks, it could be floods, it could be drought, heavy rains, etc. And thus, various disaster management systems like the flood control and flood mitigation, as well as the flood alarming zones or systems, also are playing an important role in this. And thus, the farmers should be made more acquainted with the scientific methods, and thus any upcoming natural calamity also should be known in the coming in the within a good time itself. And we should incentivize the production of riskier and also higher return crops. Now there are various crops. Now let's say, for example, it can be for the dragon fruit, etc. So these are more riskier, and but still they have higher returns. So if at all we can incentivize the farmers to invest into these kinds of crops, then definitely, and we can assure them that they would not have to face any kind of contingency or any kind of loss in the future, then this also can give a new shape towards the incomes of our farmers. Now, here are the 8 indicators of the enabling business of agriculture. Firstly, is supplying seed, registering fertilizer, securing water, registering machinery, sustaining livestock, protecting plant health, trading food, and assessing finance. Of these, These ones highlighted in the orange color are those wherein the Indian farmers or the Indian regulation system has done fairly poor. So these are some infographics. You can go through these. This is India's irrigation map. So this is the situation over here. So what amount of irrigation goes to which of our particular states? With this, let's see what do we have for news and flash today. First, Quad Summit. So the first ever summit of the leaders of the Quadrilateral Framework, Quad, will take place virtually on 12th March. So please understand, this is not the first summit of the Quad, rather it is the first virtual summit of the Quad. Now, who are the members of Quad? There are 4 countries that are member of the Quadrilateral Framework or the Quad, that are India, Australia, Japan, and USA. So the participants are Prime Minister Modi from India, President Biden from US, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga from Japan, and Prime Minister Scott Morrison from Australia. Then, probable agendas to be discussed are COVID vaccine supplies, climate change, countering aggressiveness of China in Indo-Pacific region, and other regional and global issues of the shared interest. So this was all for the day. We hope it was a good session for you all. Thank you so much for staying tuned with LawSikho. And you can join in every 9 a.m. for the CLAT quiz, which we take from the Everyday's Hindu newspaper as well. It is a very good and engaging exercise. Do participate in it. Thank you so much.